Today, with the appearance of Lord Balarāma, we have the opportunity to remember that Kṛṣṇa, who says in the Bhagavad Gita, I am Suhrit, I'm the friend in the heart of every living being, comes in various ways to assist us in our path back to Godhead. On our path back to Godhead. And Balarāma is especially noted for giving spiritual strength. So we'll be praying to Lord Balarāma today to give us spiritual strength on the process of devotional service. And to begin tonight's festivities, glorifying Lord Balarāma, we'll chant the Mangala Charana from the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, which includes a litany of verses describing Lord Balarāma's appearance. As we know, he's the first expansion of Kṛṣṇa, and then he expands himself into Mula Shankarshan, the Chaturvyuha, and expands into Mahavishnu, Garbhadakshay Vishnu, and Kshirodakshay Vishnu. All that is recounted in the verses of Kaviraj Goswami in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. So let's start with our normal tune. Vande Guru Nisha Bhaktan Isha Vatarakan Tat Prakasham Statash Shakti Krishna Chaitanya Samjakam. Do that again till we get the verse. Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodito Gaudodai Pushpavanto Chitra Shando Tamonudao Bande Guru Nisha Bhaktan Isha Vatarakan Tat Prakasham Statash Shakti Krishna Chaitanya Samjakam. In this first verse, Vande Gurun, Shri Kaviraj Goswami has written these verses as offering obeisances to his spiritual masters. Gurun is plural. He describes Vivartmana Pradakshaka Guru, or the one who shows one the path in devotional service. The Shiksha Gurus, who instruct us so that we can follow the path back to Godhead. And the Diksha Guru, the one who gives us the mantras. Offers his obeisances to the devotees of the Lord. Back, please. One back. The Lord's incarnations, his plenary portions, his energies, and the primeval Lord himself, Sri Krishna Chaitanya. So this is indicative of how important it is to know the science of Krishna consciousness. Because there is a mistaken idea that God's everything, but then in becoming everything, he's lost his personality. However, the Sri Upanishad describes Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vaishishyate. The Supreme Personality of God is perfect and complete. Because he is completely perfect, even though so many complete units emanate from him, and even though those complete units are complete in themselves, he remains the complete balance. He manifests many varieties of forms in the world for his own enjoyment. So the gurus are manifestations of Krishna's energies. The devotees, his incarnations, his plenary portions, all his energies, and they're all emanating from the one Supreme Personality of Godhead. Why is that important on Balarāma Jayanti? Because Lord Balarāma is the first expansion of Kṛṣṇa. He's exactly like Kṛṣṇa, except that he's different color and a different attitude. His attitude is, I'm a servant of Kṛṣṇa, and his color is white. He's also the origin of the gurus. Samasti Guru means that he's the reservoir of all gurus, because in serving Kṛṣṇa, Balarāma extends himself as various types of gurus and empowers those who would teach Krishna consciousness to others to bring the souls who are wayward back into Krishna's Leela. Because Krishna wants to enjoy unlimitedly, therefore he has unlimited expansions. The souls who expand from Krishna are asankhya, uncountable. Those who are waylaid in the material world can only be rectified by intervention. As Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mentioned to Sanatana Goswami, only when they are able to come back in touch with the Vedic instruction, by which they can then understand sambandha, or their relationship with Krishna, can they make advancement in devotional service. So here we go. Vande Guru Nisha Bhaktan Isha Vatarakan Tat Prakasham Statach Shakti Krishna Chaitanya Samyakam Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodito Gaudodai Pushpavanto Chitro Shando Tamonudao. So we have here offering of obeisances to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda. As explained in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the Dwapara Yuga, Krishna appears with his expansion Balarāma. In the Kali Yuga, the same Krishna and Balarāma appear as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Swayam Bhagavan, and his first expansion, Balarāma, who appears as Nityananda. In the Leela of the Lord, mother of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Sachi Devi. In the Leela of Krishna, his mother is Yashoda. So in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Vrindavan Das Thakur recounts how Sachi Mata had dreams of her deities, Krishna and Balarāma, fighting with Nitai and Chaitanya. They were having an argument in her dream. She was worshipping Krishna and Balarāma in her home. Then she saw how Nityananda and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were taking the sweets that were offered to Krishna and Balarāma. And Balarāma began to chastise and say, "These are our sweets." And Nitai would reply, "Not in this age, this is our age." And in this form of quarrel, as she was observing it, she was taken aback, came back into her awakened consciousness, and then recounted the story to her son, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who said, "Oh, your deities are very powerful." Bande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodito Gaudodai Pushpavantao Chitro Shando Tamonudao Yada Dvaitam Brahmopanishadi Tarapyasya Tanuba Ya Mantaryami Purushaiti Shosham Shahabibaba Shadaishvaryai Purnoya Yaha Bhagavan Saswayamayam Chaitanyat Kṛṣṇa Jagati Paratatvam Paramiha. So that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the source of Brahman, Paramatma, and he is Bhagavan himself. Just as Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says that I'm the source. Brahmanohi pratishtaham amritat yavayasya. I'm the source of that eternal Brahman effulgence. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is that very same Krishna, but he's expanded himself. Vadanti tat vabidas tatvam yajgyanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti. So God is one, he's Advaya Gyan Tattva. He has variety. There's Brahman, or the impersonal aspect. There's Paramatma, or the ways in which he expands himself into the hearts of all living beings. And Bhagavan, he has his own life, his own affairs in the spiritual world, which we can enter into by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nanda, who is Balarāma. Narpita charim chira karuna yavatirna kalau samarpayitum munato jvararasam svabhakti shriyam hari purata sundara dyuti kadamba sandipita sadare kandare spuratu vasachinandara. Special benediction offered by Srila Rupa Goswami. This is a benediction. May the Supreme Lord, who is known as the son of Srimati Sachi Devi, be transiently situated in the innermost chambers of your heart, resplendent with the radiance of molten gold. He has appeared in the age of Kali by his causeless mercy to bestow what no incarnation has ever offered before, the most sublime and radiant mellow of devotional service, the mellow of conjugal love. And we'll talk more about the importance of this verse in a while, because as he mentions here, we have to have established Krishna within our hearts. One may say, and this would not be incorrect, that Krishna is already there within our hearts. He's within the heart of every living being. As Krishna himself says in the Bhagavad Gita, I've expanded myself into the heart of every living entity. Ishvara sarvabhutanam hridashera janatishtiti brahmayan sarvabhutani yantra rudrani maya. But then why am I not aware of Krishna within my heart? Because there are many other distracting elements within my heart. So many, my heart's become thick, dark, hard, and I can't perceive the presence of the Lord. So this benediction is especially important. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission, as was Krishna's, was to help everyone to lighten the load of one's heart, divest oneself of the unwanted desires that are there that distract us from our relationship with Krishna, who's already there within the heart. And Krishna gives a process in every age through which anyone can cleanse their heart, and in Kali Yuga, he especially gives the direction, Cheto Darpana Marjanam. Cleanse your heart by the process of saṅkīrtana, or the chanting of the Lord's names. This is pursuant to the very meaning of the last verse of the Vedanta Sutra, which says, Anavriti Shabdat. By sound, you can become uncovered. By sound vibration, you can also become recovered again in the material modes of nature. It depends what kind of sound you listen to. So this is an especially sweet benediction given by great Acharya, and it's a prayer requesting the Lord to purify our hearts. Can you sing it, please? Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikutir Ladini Shakti Rasma Ekatmanam Apibhuvi Pura Deha Bedam Gatau Tau Chaitanyakyam prakadamanuna tatvayam chaikyam aptam Radha bhava jyoti suvalitam Naumi Kṛṣṇa sarupam Shri Radhaya pranaya mahima Kidrisho vanayaiva Swadyo yena bhutam madhurima Kidrisho va madhyaha Saukyam chasya mad anubhavata Kidrisham veti lobat Tad bhavadya samajani Shachigarbha sindo harindu Saṅkīrtana karanato ashayi Garbhodashayi chapayobdishayi Sheshasya yasyam sakalasa nitya Nandakirama Sharanam Mamastu. So here Sri Nityananda Ram, as I mentioned before, is Balarāma himself, the first expansion of Kṛṣṇa. And Nityananda Ram, as the servitor of Kṛṣṇa, becomes Saṅkīrtana, Sheshanag, and the Vishnus who lie in the Karna ocean, Garbha ocean, ocean of milk, which are all his plenary portions and the portions of his plenary portions. And we find that in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the author is equating Kṛṣṇa and Balarāma with Nitai and Gaur. Kṛṣṇa comes to deliver the fallen souls in the Kali Yuga. He comes as Nitai and Gaur. Balarāma Hoilo Nitai, one of our acharyas sings that Balarāma has become Nitai in this age. And this is significant because Balarāma helps to clear the path so that we can worship the Lord. We find in the pastimes of Kṛṣṇa, Balarāma first enters within the womb of Devaki and then into the womb of Rohini, thus making way for Krishna's appearance. Because before Kṛṣṇa appears anywhere, the stage must be set. And Balarāma helps to set the stage for anyone in this world by becoming the spiritual master and giving both through precept and by example, achar, by showing how to follow the path and enlivening the disciples how to adhere to the path of the Lord. It can gradually make their hearts ready. And Prabhupada mentions this in a purport in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, which is a description of the cleansing of the temple of Gunicha. We know from our recent absorption in Rath Yatra, the Gunicha Manjana, the mandir is non-different from Vrindavan. And the Lord goes there with his associates before Rath Yatra and cleanses the temple. How many times? Not only does he clean inside, but then he also cleans outside to make sure nothing else comes back in. And this is Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and other acharyas equate this cleansing of the Gunicha temple and the meticulous way in which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all his associates cleansed it to be the same process we must adhere to in cleaning our own hearts, because heart is the stage or the temple where Kṛṣṇa can be installed. So Prabhupada mentions in his purport, in a paraphrase of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's commentary on that section, that there are many dirty things that can accumulate within the heart. Kutinati. Kutinati means duplicity. That is, I may lie, tell untruths in order to get what I want. Also, I may think of taking advantage of a spiritual position for some profit. Or I just may be greedy or lusty. These are all impediments to worshiping Kṛṣṇa. And the environment of the heart has to be cleansed before we can install Kṛṣṇa on the throne. Srila Prabhupada mentions that when we actually do the work of cleansing our hearts, then we can install Kṛṣṇa on the throne of our heart, and then you can hold a festival, he says. And you can feed everybody prasadam. In the Sri Chaitanya Shikshamrita, Bhaktivinoda Thakur talks about how in Kṛṣṇa Lila, Kṛṣṇa and Balarāma kill many demons. Can anybody name any of the demons that Kṛṣṇa killed? Putana. Feel free. I can say anything because I can't hear what anybody's saying. Kamsa, Vatsasura. Balarāma killed Dhenukasura. Palambasura is killed by Balarāma. Bakasura, Agasura, Keshi. Prabhupada says Kṛṣṇa did more killing than even loving. Actually, he left Vrindavan, as he explained several times, to protect the residents there. And of course, in the Gita, Kṛṣṇa says, Paritranaya sadhunam vinashayata duskritam dharma samstapanartaya sambhavam yuge yuge. That I come to cut down the unwanted elements in society and to enliven the devotees. And at the time, as we know from Kṛṣṇa book, that Kṛṣṇa appeared, around that time, there was an accumulation of demoniac persons, very powerful ones who came to take shelter here on the earthly planet and develop their political and military power. This was noted by Bhumi, the earth herself, who then went and mentioned to Brahma that there's an unnecessary burden on the earth right now. So they took the case to Kṛṣṇa, and Kṛṣṇa agreed to appear in the world. So we know from the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, before Kṛṣṇa appeared, then Lord Balarāma appeared in order to set the stage. Kṛṣṇa had asked all of his associates to come to set the stage for his appearance. And specifically, the children that were born to Devaki and who were killed by Kamsa one after another, there were 6 altogether, called the Shadgarbha Asuras, represent Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Mada, Moha, Matsarya. Those are things you don't want to catch. If you think COVID's bad, or even monkeypox isn't as bad. Of course, we don't know about that yet, but it's coming to a theater near you. It as much as it's in these qualities are infectious, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Purusha Prakriti Stohi Punkte Prakriti Jan Gunan Karanam Guna Sangosya Sarasat Yoni Janmasu. By association, one can become illusioned. Mada Moham, one can become mad, one can become envious, and so forth. All these qualities are impediments to installing Kṛṣṇa on the throne of our heart. And therefore, our acharyas say, in the appearance of Kṛṣṇa, these 6 are killed as an indication that we must also kill the obstacles on the path and within our heart that unnecessarily occupy our hearts, Matsarya, greed, and so forth, before Kṛṣṇa will appear there. And in the Chaitanya Shikshamrita, Bhaktivinoda Thakur said something very captivating about the ways in which Kṛṣṇa kills the demons in Vrindavan. That each one of them represent an anartha, or a group of anarthas that we may unwittingly take within our hearts and then become afflicted by. And then he distinguishes between the demons that were killed by Kṛṣṇa, and you named many of them, and we also named a couple that were killed by Balarāma, and says there's a difference in that by hearing Kṛṣṇa Katha and so forth, Kṛṣṇa helps to remove the anarthas that are represented by the demons he killed, and those demons killed by Balarāma, for instance, Pralambasura, who represents the burden of carrying around false prestige and lusty desires, or Putana, well, Kṛṣṇa killed Putana, that one must do one's own due diligence, depending on Balarāma, in order to remove those anarthas. I'll say again that for the anarthas represented by the demons Kṛṣṇa killed, one must do one's own due diligence. That doesn't mean that he won't help. But as mentioned in the Chaitanya Shikshamrita, one must have sanvikalpa samadhi, which means you must be very determined and should specifically try to remove these anarthas from your heart. And in the Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter, which we just recited, when you go to the last verse, what's the last verse? Yoma meva masammundo janati purushottamam sasarva vid bhajatimam sarvabhavena bharata itugayatimam shastram idamukvam mayanaga etad bhutbha buddhiman sat krita kritascha bharata. If you look at this verse, it's key in understanding the path of spiritual realization. It's a non-sectarian path. We can look at it. In the second to the last paragraph in this last verse, Srila Prabhupada said, before we can progress in actual spiritual realization, we have to remove from our heart weakness. It's called dorbalya hridaya dorbalyam, which means a weakness of heart. And what is weakness of heart? It means that although I have the process before me, I don't take advantage of it. It means that I'm easily influenced by bad association. I get attracted to material things very easily, and then I get absorbed in them, and it's hard to get free from that. So Balarāma can help us, but in getting Balarāma's help, we must do our due diligence. Just like Balarāma is the representative of the spiritual master. The spiritual master, as Prabhupada says, and the acharyas can give us all good instruction, but we have to follow it. And an example Srila Bhaktisiddhanta used to give, if one falls into a hole and you can't get out, if someone brings you a rope and lowers it, if you say, could you also make my hand go around the rope? Say, no, you have to grab it. So there's a similar way in which, are we going to get that verse? Okay. There's a similar way in which Balarāma gives all strength in his instructions as the spiritual master, but one must be vigilant in following them. For instance, spiritual master, and speaking generically, spiritual master is one who presents the science of Krishna consciousness. And the science of Krishna consciousness, says Bhaktivinoda Thakur, means there are 9 processes. And they start with Shravanam, Kirtanam. So if one diligently follows the process. It's great mercy to know what the process is, as given by Balarāma, the Samasti Guru. However, one must diligently follow it. There are numerous cases in which we claim that Kṛṣṇa consciousness is very difficult and the anarthas are very hard to overcome. But then if we actually inventory our daily hearing and chanting, we may find that we haven't taken as much trouble as we could have to hear and chant properly. So a point Srila Prabhupada made about weakness of heart, which is mentioned at the penultimate paragraph in this purport, I mean second to last, is that when a devotee had mentioned Prabhupada, but Maya is very strong, therefore how can I overcome Maya? Because Maya is seemingly all powerful. And Srila Prabhupada had retorted that it's not that Maya is so strong, it's that your intention is weak. And this represents this is the point of this purport. If you'll go up a little more, because that says second. Go up a little more. There. While one is performing devotional service, it's actually the last paragraph. Thank you. While one is performing devotional service in the association of pure devotees in full Kṛṣṇa consciousness, there are certain things which require to be vanquished altogether. The most important thing one has to surmount is weakness of heart. The first fall down is caused by the desire to lord it over material nature. Thus one gives up the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Lord. The second weakness of heart is that as one increases the propensity to lord it over material nature, he becomes attached to matter and the possession of matter. The problems of material existence are due to these weaknesses of the heart. So, when the weakness of heart is overcome, then one can make progress in devotional service. And what's the opposite of weakness? And who represents strength? Yeah, as we hear in the Shastra, Vaiśeṣika Dāsa Svabhavika Jnana Bala Kriya Cha. Kṛṣṇa has a variety of energies. This is the very meaning of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He has multifarious, or can say unlimited energies. He's not an amorphous blob or just an energy, nondescript energy, but he's the source of all types of energies. Parashashaktir Vivadaya Vishruddha Svabhavika Jnana Bala Kriya Cha. Therefore, if one takes the orders of Balarāma, whose representatives are the spiritual masters, the Vartmana Pradaksha Guru, the Shiksha Gurus, and the Diksha Guru, and follows strictly, this due diligence is the way that Balarāma gives us this strength of heart. Other evidence we find in the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where Kṛṣṇa says, Rayana kale manasa chalena bhaktya yukto yoga palina chaiva Guruvar madhye pranama vesha samyak satam param purusham upaiti divyam. This is a description Kṛṣṇa is giving of those who are practicing a kind of yoga where you mechanically raise the prana and the energies so that you can situate them in the middle of your eyebrows before you leave the world. And then in the purport, if you scroll down, Prabhupada says, in this verse it is clearly stated that at the time of death, the mind must be fixed in devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For those practiced in yoga, it is recommended that they raise the life force between the eyebrows to the Ajna Chakra. The practice of Shat Chakra Yoga involving meditation on the 6 chakras is suggested here. A pure devotee does not practice such yoga, but because he is always engaged in Krishna consciousness, at death he can remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead by His grace. This is explained in verse 14. The particular use of the word yoga balena, which use of what word? Is? I know, but I was reading it and then it stopped at is, so that's as far as I can go. Can you scroll down just a little more? The particular use of the word yoga balena is significant in this verse because without practice of yoga, whether Shat Chakra yoga or Bhakti yoga, one cannot come to this transcendental state of being at the time of death. One cannot suddenly remember the Supreme Lord at death. One must have practiced some yoga system, especially the system of Bhakti yoga. Since one's mind at death is very disturbed, one should practice transcendence through yoga during one's life. So thanks to Lord Balarāma, who very specifically assists us by giving us his extensions, the various types of gurus who avail themselves to a sincere devotee. We need guidance. And the power of that guidance gives us the strength of heart to go on. And the power of our own practice compounds. This kind of strength is impossible in the material world. Prabhupada distinguishes seemingly unnecessary the difference between becoming physically strong and having strength of heart. One might exercise, as Prabhupada sometimes mentioned, running on the beach, because I think he used to see people running on Juhu Beach. And they were doing it to build up strength. It's not a bad idea. Prabhupada walked every day himself on Juhu Beach. But he would say, there's this sense that if I develop enough spiritual strength, then I'll be protected. But we're disavowed of this idea from Shukadeva Goswami, who says, Deha patra kalatradeshu atmasainu sasatsapi tesham pramadonitanam pashanapina pashyati. That your deha, even if it becomes very strong, cannot protect you. And nor can the offspring from your body protect you. And as Prahlad Maharaj says, Balasya neha sharanam pitaro nishinghanar tasya chaganamudan matimajatono taptasya ta pratividirya ihanjisheshtas tavad bito tanubitam twadupeshitanam. That unless Krishna empowers you, then you can't protect yourself, you can't protect others, nor will there be a cure for anything, even if you take the best medicine or you go to the best doctors, unless Krishna helps. So real strength means taking Krishna's help. And it's an amazing feature of human life that we can perceive that Krishna is reaching out to us and giving us help. When we're sincere and we call out to Krishna, please help me, he's there to give us assistance. If anyone's had this experience, you know that in the times when you realize there's no other remedy in your life except for divine intervention. Have you ever had that? And then there's a kind of certainty that if I call out, please help me, it feels good to do that because we know there is some help. And there are innumerable stories, starting with Dhruva Maharaj, of those who have needed God's help in one way or another and called out. And then it's forthcoming. There's a series of serendipitous events that unfold within our lives, showing us the path to devotional service. As Uddhava had mentioned, when thinking about this phenomena, what verse am I thinking? Naivo payantyapachitim gavayastavesha brahma yushapi kritim mudasmaranta Yontar Bahishtanubritam Ashubhan Vadunban. Acharya Chaitya Vabhusha Swakatim Vyanakti. He says, Kṛṣṇa, you're so kind that you know our predicament in this world, and that when we sincerely call for help, you come to us in two ways. One way, he said, is the antaryami, which means you're there within the heart and you give instruction. In the Bhagavad Gita, what does Krishna say about that? Tesham satati yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami bhuti yogam tam yenamam prayanti te tesham ivanukam partam ahamagyamacham chamaha nashayam yabhabhavasto jnana dipena basvata. There's a way in which Krishna's there in the heart. He says he's ready to assist it at any moment. So Uddhava says that I'm so grateful to you, Kṛṣṇa, because you're there within my heart, ready to assist me and give me knowledge. And as Kṛṣṇa gives the metaphor, as soon as you sincerely want to approach the path of devotional service, you don't have to be a scholar. You don't even have to know how to read or write. It doesn't matter. There's no material qualification at all. If you just sincerely want it, and Prabhupada mentions in his purport, it's not anyone, even one who's estranged from devotee association, who very sincerely calls out for Krishna's help, he'll give help because he's there responding within the heart. And then he says he also comes as the acharya, or a person who's empowered by Kṛṣṇa because that person has been empowered by his or her spiritual master, and therefore sets an example for others and also gives relevant instructions relevant to the person who he or she is teaching. So this manifestation of help, according to our Shastras, according to the scriptures, is coming from Balarāma. It's Krishna's strength potency. And real strength means to overcome weakness of heart. Again, I'll go back to the statement because it's reverberating in my head today that that's impossible to get in this world. Everyone succumbs to the powerful waves of material existence. No matter how much money one has, or no matter how many self-help books you read and follow. You can go to 1,008 self-help seminars and you'll still have to succumb to the power of the senses that dictate to us. And therefore, we need intervention. We have to seek a higher power. And as Rupa Goswami has quoted, I don't know if we can do it to the same tune. Kamadinam katina kat Kamadinam katina katita palida nir deshas tesham jatamayina karuna natrapa no pashanti utsri jaitanata yarapata labda buddhis tamayata sharanam hamniyang shvatma buddhi. Sorry, blew it. Let's try it again. Do the regular tune. Kamadinam katina katina palita durni deshas tesham jata mayina karuna natrapa no pashanti utsri jaitanata yarupate sambrata labda buddhis tamayata sharanam abhayam mam niyungshva adasye. See, tunes do matter. And in this verse, the devotee is saying that how long have I been subjected to the powerful forces of Maya? Kama dinam katina katida. Palita Durnishe, they said they're all bad masters and they've been dictating to me. The lust, anger, desire. And he goes on to say that I followed them without questioning, just followed my masters. He said, but now no more. Oh, he also mentioned they never gave me any mercy. And they never gave me any peace. They woke me up in the middle of the night and said, ah. And they also never gave me time off. Never a break. That's the tyranny of the senses, which are overcome by the lower modes of material nature. So then he says, I'm giving them up now because I've gained my intelligence, labdha buddhi. So this is what Balarāma gives us, is this intelligence through which we can discern that my interest is not in simply following the senses and following the normal course of life in this world. And I'm going to turn my full attention to Kṛṣṇa and worship Kṛṣṇa. If one has this impetus, this urge within one's heart, I no longer want to follow the bad masters of the senses, I want to serve Kṛṣṇa. This is the indication of spiritual strength. And that spiritual strength, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, which is Balarāma, can be developed if we are very determined. In fact, he uses this term, sanvikalpa samadhi. In other words, we make it our main focus in life that we're going to follow the process correctly. And by following the process correctly, then we'll get all help from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is manifested as Balarāma, who gives spiritual strength within the heart. And now we'll finish a few more verses because they're about Balarāma. Saṅkīrtana Shiradhaya Pranaya Mahima Kidrisho Yena Bhuta Madarima Kidrisho Va Mariyaha Saukyam Chastya Man Anubhavata Kidrisham Veti Lobat Tadbhavadya Samajani Shachigarbha Sindho Harindu Saṅkīrtana Karuna Shawashai Garbhodashai Chapayobdishayi Sheshasya Yasyam Sakalasa Nitya Nandakya Rama Sharanam Mamastu Maya Tite Vyapi Vaikunta Loke Munaishvarye Shichaturvyuhamadye Rupam Yasyo Bhati Saṅkīrtanakyam Shri Nityananda Ramam Prapadye Maya Bharta Janda Sangashrayanga Shete Sakshat Karanam Bodhi Madhye Yasyai Kamsha Shri Puman Adi Devas Nam Shri Nityananda Ramam Prapadye Yasyam Shamsha Shila Garbhoda Shayi Yanabhyab Jam Loka Sangatanalam Loka Shrastu Sutika Dhamma Datus Nam Shri Nityananda Ramam Prapadye Yasyam Sham Sham Sha Paratma Kilanam Moshna Vishnur Bhati Dugdabdi Shayi Shoni Bharta Yatkala Sopyanantas Tam Shri Nityananda Ramam Prapadye. We'll just stop there for now. So these verses that we just sang are about Balarāma and how Kṛṣṇa first manifests as Balarāma, and then he expands himself everywhere. So it's Kṛṣṇa, but he's expanded himself in a particular mood with his internal energy, which is even here with us in the material world. Therefore, the manifestation of Mahasaṅkārsana is a gigantic form of Kṛṣṇa, unimaginably large, who's lying on the Karna ocean and who facilitates the manifestation of the material world. The material world is manifest cyclically. It's sometimes manifested, sometimes unmanifested. Avyaktam, vyaktam. Avyaktam means Avyakta, I should say vyaktam vyakta means now you see it, now you don't. It's there and then it becomes unmanifested. It's a generic energy, but when Mahavishnu glances over that energy, he impregnates it with the conscious living beings who then begin to animate the energy. And he also infuses it with his other energies, which are the time energy, and they're the three modes of material nature. And then with facility from engineers who probably work in something better than even the Apple building here, which is that round thing, right? I think I saw it when we were flying in the other day. They have a way of designing redesigning the material world over and over again. The blueprints are already there, the codes are there, the algorithms, it's way better than AI that we have now. And the whole thing gets manifested again so the living entities can carry on their cherished desire to taste matter in various flavors. You've got vanilla, strawberry, chocolate, the three famous flavors of ice cream. When you mix the flavors together, you get unlimited different nuances. And this is Mahavishnu facilitating the living entities. The living entities, at the end of every creation, when there's a cataclysm and the whole material nature is then avyakta, becomes avyakta. Where does it go? Into the body of Mahavishnu. And that's where the living entities reside until he again impregnates the material nature so they can start again. Asau gunamayir bhaver bhuta sukshmendriyamapi swa nirviteshu nirvishto punkte bhuteshu tad gunan. As soon as he manifests the material nature again, he informs us where we left off and energizes us to try to enjoy the material nature again, because that's our desire. And then Garbhodakshaya Vishnu then gives more facility by entering into the individual universes that emanate from the body of Mahavishnu. And Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, as we were just reading, as another manifestation of Balarāma. And that manifestation, from that manifestation, Brahma is born from the navel, from which comes a lotus, upon which Brahma is manifest. Then you have the next manifestation. These are expansions of expansions of expansions is Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, and that's also Balarāma, who then enters within the hearts of all living beings to assist them in their enjoyment of the material nature or to assist them on their path back to Godhead. This is mentioned in the prayers by the personified Vedas, that there's two purposes for the universe. One is to try to enjoy the material nature. And you can do a survey of all living beings in the material world, and on the survey you can ask, how's that working out for you? And for those for whom it doesn't seem to be working out, Kṛṣṇa says, Bahunam jamanamante jnanavamam prapadyate vasudeva sarvamiti sa mahatma sudurlabha. Some of them come to a conclusion that this is a futile attempt, and therefore they start reaching for God in different ways. And then the real purpose of the material nature, or Krishna's Srishti Leela, is to give an opportunity to wayward souls who have been in the material world since time immemorial to go back home, back to Godhead. So then there's Balarāma within our hearts, as manifest as the super soul, as an expansion of Balarāma. Balarāma's mood is, or it's called abhiman. His ego, his whole sense of being is that I'm a servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So how's he serving? He's serving by helping to manifest the material world to create a theater from which all living beings can go back to Godhead, and he's ready to help at every moment. In the spiritual world, Balarāma manifests all the paraphernalia for Kṛṣṇa to use in his pastimes, because Kṛṣṇa has Leela, and he uses a variety of implements to carry out his Leela. For instance, he has A. Your turn. What does Kṛṣṇa have? Does he have any stuff? Kṛṣṇa has a flute. Kṛṣṇa has a flute. Then he has some shoes. You tell me and I'll sing the song. Peacock feather and a bed on which to snooze. He has all these paraphernalia, unlimited paraphernalia in the material world. This is called Sandhini Shakti. It's a manifestation of Lord Balarāma. And he does it in the mood of service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He even becomes his Brahminical thread. And this is his extension everywhere to serve Kṛṣṇa. And then as I explain the material world, and then one of my favorite extensions of Balarāma, as he goes from Balarāma and then saṅkīrtana, as we heard here, then he comes the Chaturvyuha. There's a lot of explained about the Chaturvyuha in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Then the second manifestation of saṅkīrtana, and then comes the Purushas, all the Purushas who manifest so that the material world is a little playground for the living entities, 8,400,000 rides you can go on. And then after all these manifestations, he has Shesha. And Shesha means the remainder. So what is Shesha there for? Anything else. He's so eager to serve Kṛṣṇa. He has all-encompassing service in the spiritual world, in the material world, and then Shesha. And we're, as described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he's the reservoir of all of us jivas. Check out all the jivas in the room here. Actually, these are not jivas, they're mukta jivas, liberated souls in this room. But there's a way in which there are unlimited souls just in the material world, and he's there, Balarāma, to facilitate all that. And everyone in the spiritual world, all the incarnations of the Lord, starting with Balarāma, all have the same mood that I'm a servant of the Lord. There's only a few outliers that don't have that mood. And where are they? They're hanging out in the material world. You run into them all the time. And so Balarāma is there as Shesha to help with any other service. So this is very practical in a way, because when we start talking about manifestations of God and the personality of God, and then there are deities, and there's so many varieties of and categories of devotional service to understand. If someone is not well informed or hasn't studied the science of Kṛṣṇa consciousness, someone may just think that it's something imaginary. So it requires some application on the part of someone who wants to make real spiritual advancement, that we should major in devotional service and find out the science behind it and get educated in it, and then diligently practice devotional service. And by doing that, the miracle that happens in one's life that proves the efficacy of it happens to us. Sutta Goswami starts speaking about the Bhagavatam, or speaking the Bhagavatam, by saying Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayat Yashuvairagyam Jnanam Chayarahaitukam. He says, if you apply yourself to this, then you'll be able to know for yourself that it's working, because you're going to get something that nobody else has, and that's knowledge and detachment. You can't buy that in the material world. It's not available here. People try to get it through intoxication. They'll take intoxication and they'll feel detached for a while. And hippies used to take, and probably people still do, LSD. And people would walk in to see Prabhupada and they would challenge him that, I'm seeing God right now, when they're on LSD. And Prabhupada once said, please accept my humble obeisances. But later, they descend back into their normal life. They figure out they got to go work at Ace Hardware or something. And then, I mean, nothing against Ace Hardware, no offense. But the fact is, the material world's real, and the forces of the material world are real. And no matter how you intoxicate, or no matter how you churn your mind and try to think that you're God, or that you're more powerful than the material nature through self-help, you'll still be dragged down. Ariya Kṛṣṇa parampadam tata, patantyato nadrita yushmarangraya. The demigods say this before Krishna appears in the world. They say, this appearance you're making is so important because every other process that every jiva has ever tried since time immemorial, and that's a long time, has never worked. Everyone's fallen down from their imagined position. I mean, you go into poetry. I was just thinking the other day, we were talking at lunch in Toronto about the Shelley's poem Ozymandias, about the terrible emperor who had conquered everyone in all directions and was torturing all kings. And he had a big, huge statue of himself made. You'll see this even in Angkor Wat in Cambodia, if you ever go there. The person was somewhat inclined to Vedic culture, but he made a slight miscalculation and put his face on everything. In any case, Ozymandias thought he was the king of the world. And the poet Shelley, who had been there to the desert and seen the visage of this huge statue, it's worn away by time. And he said, it's just sand's blowing on it. It's broken. And you can still see in the inscription on it where he says, look on my power and then fear me. And now he's gone, long gone. So everyone gets vanquished by the material nature. And Rupa Goswami says, Vacho vegam, manasakroda vegam, jihva vegam, udarapasta vegam, etan vegam, yo vishahete dira, sarvam apimam pritivimnas. Pritivimnas Shishat says, everyone becomes the disciple of the person who's not conquered by the senses. Because the senses are the lords of this world. And Krishna says to Uddhava in the 10th canto, 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's only because of the mind, which has God-like fearsome power over every soul, that we take birth again and again in the material world. So it's no light thing, Vacho Vega Manasakruta Vega. Who can conquer the tongue? Nobody. Manasa, who can conquer the mind? Nobody. Who can conquer the tongue, belly, genitals? Nobody. Everyone's being led by them. And they are the masters of the world, except someone who has the mercy of Balarāma. And how do you get it? Follow the process. That's what Bhaktivinoda Thakur says. The process is there. You have to be in samadhi on the process. And Balarāma will give it. He's there ready. But you have to do it. You have to exercise your free will and take the process. Then the most amazing miracle occurs within our own lives. And that is we start to realize that when I hear Krishna Katha, I'm no longer sleepy. I don't want to go to sleep. I want to hear it. And when there's Krishna Katha, I'm not distracted. I don't want to look at my phone. I want to throw it in the ocean. And I'm not indifferent. I'm highly attentive to devotional service. These are mentioned as in the Bhagavatams, like you have to have this. That's Balarāma. You have to apply yourself and you have to experience for yourself. Otherwise, 10 years later, you'll go on the internet and say, oh, it's all imagination. Because you never got it. So the Bhagavatam says something that we can all relate to, that just like when you eat food and you get nourished, then in a similar way, when you properly apply yourself to the teachings of Balarāma and take his help and develop strength, knowing that if I apply myself, the strength will come, and that's the most valuable thing, the yoga balena. I can't go without it. You can't leave the body successfully unless you have Balarāma strength, yoga balena, by your own practice. You have to do the work. And so he says, Kavi Yogendra. Say it again. Bhakti parishanubhava viraktir anyata traishatrika ekala. Prapadya manasya yatashanha shush tushti pushti shuddha payonugasam. Means that just like when you eat food, when you're hungry, you get nourishment, satisfaction, your hunger goes away, right? And similarly, if you practice bhakti properly, then Balarāma will give you this taste that I'm seeing God for myself. I realize yasmin yato yarhi yena cha yasya yasma yata yadutarastha para parova bhava karoti vikaroti prataksabhava sanchoditas tarakilam bhavatak surupam. I was looking for excuses to quote that verse. And there's plenty of them because it means God's everything everywhere. There's a sense of that anubhava means you start to see for yourself that the energies are working. For instance, in the Bhagavad Gita, Kṛṣṇa says that a self-realized person, what does that mean? It's just not lip service. It means that a person sees that there's a conscious being within the body, and the body's just a manifestation of the modes of material nature. And it's acting in a certain way because it's the control of the material nature. If you can go out, for instance, and just meet people and marvel at the fact that everyone has a different svabhava, but the soul's inside. It's a part of Kṛṣṇa, and the external part of our lives is just it's a kind of a circus act, really. Prabhupada said it was like an insane asylum, but everyone's playing a role, but that they're not actually that person. So that comes a direct vision that there's a soul within every body, and that everything, the material nature, is also Krishna's nature. Even though it's external nature, it's still his divine nature. And therefore, the person who's practicing Kṛṣṇa consciousness marvels at the material nature. And then he says, Bhakti parishara. Bhakti means the natural love for God that you have in your heart, it will awaken. It starts to manifest in the heart by the process of devotional service. Bhakti, parishanubhava, viraktir. And then you get, what I was saying before, you can't buy this. You can only get it through genuine spiritual practice, a gift of Lord Balarāma, virakti anyatracha, which means that anything that's not related to Kṛṣṇa, you no longer have any interest in. How nice would that be? You're interested in this. None of the above. I only want Kṛṣṇa consciousness. And that would manifest in that I'm interested in hearing anything related to Kṛṣṇa. Other things, everything's related to Kṛṣṇa. So there is nothing not related to Kṛṣṇa. But the fact is that Maya means that I think something's not related to Kṛṣṇa. So that type of power of feeling fulfilled enough so that I'm not influenced by the world, that's Balarāma. That's real. And Prabhupada, when he speaks on Balarāma Jayanti, there's only one lecture that I've seen that's recorded. And he just talks about Lord Nityananda. And he talks about the song. How does it start? Nitai Padakamala. And Nitai Padakamala, he talks about how there's powerful spiritual energy coming from Lord Nityananda. And so if on the day of Balarāma Jayanti, we remember that what's most important for us is to get this spiritual power, meaning the strength to go on doing devotional service without stopping. If one can garner that strength and overcome the weakness of heart, we'll know for ourselves there's no certificate needed. Prabhupada said many times in relationship to this verse, Bhakti Parishanubhava Viraktir. He said, when you're eating food and you feel satisfied, nobody has to come and give you a certificate that, you're feeling a little better now. You just know it right away. So that's what we need. So we need Balarāma, and we can, on Balaram Jayanti especially, it's a good time to renew your vows and say, I'm going to be more attentive to my practice of devotional service. Put everything in its place. Don't major in minor things. Don't get waylaid. Don't waste any time. Make sure you do your sadhana, and you do it as sincerely and as attentively as possible, because then you'll get the great gift of Lord Balarāma. He'll help you slay the demon that of sloth and being burdened by all kinds of material desires, and then you've really got something. You have a spiritual strength, which is the real strength of this world. So we pray to Balarāma on this day that we may give our full attention to the 9 practices of devotional service, beginning with hearing and chanting and remembering, and we may also be fully aware that if we don't get spiritual strength, we must have slacked somewhere in our practice of devotional service. So we can only blame ourselves. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Hare Kṛṣṇa. That was indeed a diatribe, and I thank you for sitting through it, which required spiritual strength in and of itself. And since we're setting up for the next part of our program, which you're really going to like, it's an Abhishek. We'll take 2 questions, and then we'll start Kirtan. Caught you off guard, huh? Yes.
Hare Krishna. How to get the love that Balarāma has for Kṛṣṇa?
How to get the love that Balarāma has for Kṛṣṇa? Well, the loving, we're parts and parcel of Balarāma. As Balarāma has this abhiman, or mood of loving service to Kṛṣṇa, we naturally have it. It's nothing to get. Nitya siddha Kṛṣṇa prema sadhya kabunoi shravanadi shuddha chitta kara udoy. So Shastra says, you don't get this. It's already there. But shravanadi shuddha chitte kara udoy means it's awakened. And how is it awakened? By the process of hearing and chanting, and when the heart is purified. Kalena tivra parishudha bhava. There's a way in which Brahma, even at the beginning of creation, he had to do kalena over a long period of time. Tivra tapasa parishudha bhava. Kalena tivra tapasa parishudha bhava. Isn't that nice? That he got purified by doing Kalena Tivra. Over a long period of time, he did very sincere and focused practice of hearing and chanting. How do we know that? Uvacha Puratas Tasmai Tasya Divya Saraswati Kama Kṛṣṇaya Govinda Hey Gopi Jani Tibi Vallabhaya Prayavanir Mantram Te Tasati Priyam Tapastam Tap Etena Tavasidhir Bhavishyati Atate Pe Sasuchiram Prinam Govinam Aviyam Shweta Dvipa Patim Krishnam Golokastya Param Prakritya Gunarupinya Paripasitam Sasradalakam Bhande Koti Kingjalka Brimhite Bhumish Chintamnis Tatra Karnikari Mahasane Samasinam Chadandam Jyotirupam Sanatadam Shabda Brahma Bayam Benum Vadayantam Makambuje. Because he practiced devotional service very strictly, Kalena Tivra, Tapasa, do some tapasya, Parishudha Bhava. Then his heart was purified, and naturally he could see Kṛṣṇa. How did he see Kṛṣṇa? Bhutendriya Shayamaye Vatatam Dadarsha. Dadarsha he could see in his own senses. Well, Krishna is present in my body. This is spiritual strength. When you start seeing Krishna as your senses are purified and you realize he's Hrishikesh, he's the master of my senses. He's there controlling all my senses. This is sarvopadi vinirmuktam tapratvena nirmalam hrishikena hrishikesha sevanam bhakti ruchate. There's a way in which by performing kalina tivra tapasa parishuddha bhava, our senses become purified, and then we start to see Krishna in our own senses. And then love for Krishna is naturally there, just like it's naturally there, a mother for a child. When a child is born, mother's naturally drawn and naturally loves. We naturally love Krishna. It just has to be awakened by hearing and chanting. Okay? One more question. Yes? Two, but we'll cut it in half. Answer 50% faster.
Hare Krishna. In Krishna's pastimes, he kills many demons while he's growing up, but there are some demons that Balarāma killed, like Dhenukasura, I think Pralambasura as well. Is there any significance to why Balarāma is the one to kill those demons, or any reason that's cited as to why he was the one and why those demons?
Kind of. And I mentioned it a little earlier that there's a way in which, as iconic figures, they're ones that Bhaktivinoda Thakur says represent certain kinds of qualities that we have to deal with by our own kalena tivra tapasa parishuddha bhava. That's the distinction he makes. Otherwise, there's no other really clear explanation in the Leela about why this one and not that one. But it's kind of cool. Okay, Brajarash Bhavana. Cool in which Dhenukasura just...
At the beginning you mentioned that there are two weaknesses of heart. One was the desire to lord over matter, and the other was attachment to matter. So you discussed how one can overcome the second one by having a higher taste, essentially. How does one overcome the first one?
They're kind of the same. It's just deeper involvement in material nature. You kind of feel it when you read that purport, that when you start off dabbling in the material nature and you start checking it out, next thing you know, you're fully into it. And Maya is so strong that you don't even know it, practically. You get so absorbed in it. So it's a question of degree. It begins, dhyayato visham pumsam sangasteshu pajayate, sangat sanjayate kama krodho bijayate, etc. So there's a way in which Krishna says, if you start looking at the material nature, thinking that there's something in it for me, rather than looking at it like Krishna says, Brahmanyadaya karmani sangam tyakva karotya, that there's something in it to serve Krishna. That's the simple distinction between the two things. If you look at it in the first way, then you become captured by Maya. And I was just thinking that on the airplanes, because we're flying on all these airplanes. And when the lights go out, we had an early flight this morning. It took off at 6:30 a.m., I think. And so it was dark, except for all the TV screens. And it's really hard. I put on dark glasses inside the thing because my eyes, I was thinking, Jivai kato chutam vikarshati mavratipta shishnonyatash tvarudanam shravanam katayam granyonya tash chapaladrit kwachakarma shaktir vavyasa patnam udayo na pun gehapatim lunanti. It's a way in which Prahlad Maharaj says, all my senses are dragging me in a different direction. So I noticed on the airplane, I'm coming to a relevant point, I hope, that I just look up, I'm trying to chant japa, and my eyes going like, wow, what's that story about? and then I was thinking how we're so smart as humans. We set up all this infrastructure to create these things. I mean, I can't make a TV, and it takes a lot of brain power to figure out how to do it, what to speak of how to mass produce them enough to put them on the seat of every single airplane. And then what's the result? Everyone's just going, ooh. And then there's another screen. I see some people, they're on the screen, and then they have another screen in front of their face. And I was watching somebody just scroll, and I think, God, I don't want to do that. It looks horrible. You're just like, oh. And that's how material nature, it grabs us. If we look at it and we think, I can conquer that. I can do this. You watch me. I'm going to make a box, and I'm going to bring all the images in the world into this one little box, and then, then I'm really going to enjoy. And the next thing you know, you're sitting drooling in front of a screen, and you can't even get up and walk outside and look at a bird, because it's like, what's happening on the screen? So that's the absorption we get in material nature. It's very hard to overcome. Vaiśeṣika Dāsa. Last point, mama maya duratya, mamevaye prapadyanti, mayametam tarantite. Kṛṣṇa says, you can't overcome it. It'll come back and grab you. It's got us. But we can get free. That's what we should do. We should have a sincere, simple, but very focused spiritual practice every day. And a goal for life that the main thing I want to achieve is leave this world remembering God. And with no loose ends. We just remember Alexander the Great, who just before he died, he told his ministers, I want you to put me in the coffin with my hands hanging out. So everyone sees I got nothing in my hand, even though I was such a great conqueror. I was left with nothing. He said, take all my wealth and you scatter it along the roads all the way until it reaches my tombstone. So everyone sees I left all my gold and wealth on earth when I left. And thirdly, he said, have all the best doctors in my kingdom carry my coffin to show everyone that even they couldn't help me from dying. And from that, you should become sober, become dhira, and say, I want Balarāma. That's the real wealth. I want the strength from Balarāma. He's right there. He's extended himself through making this whole arrangement of the material creation. He's there within the heart. And that's what I want to get. Even if you're a kid, you can get it. You can get it if you're just a little kid, like 5 years old. And you can get it if you're an adult or at any stage. All we have to do is really decide we're going to go for it. So this is Balarāma's appearance day. We should dive back into the real thing. It's hearing, chanting, remembering, and make that our mainstay in life. No more kidding around. Gloves are off. No more Mr. Nice Guy. No more like cohorting with the material desires and saying, okay, we can be friends sometimes, That doesn't work. We have to go for Balarāma and say, Balarāma, come on in and smash the heck out of these guys. Just beat their heads in, would you? Like I have these material desires, please get on their back and just smash them with your fists so they're like blood coming out of them. And grab them by the heels and swing them around and throw them in the trees. I don't want to see them anymore. I just want to go, I want to have a free heart to serve and not be envious of other people and not have the burden of thinking, oh, I'm so great. Om Tat Sat. Now we have an Abhishek. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Thank you. Thank you. Shri Balarāma ki jai. Hari Bol.